Okay. Yeah, why not? That's probably fine. We're gonna ignore that. Okay. Glory be. Praise be to Storytime Saturdays. Welcome back. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome back in advance. Um, what is my phone doing? That's cool. We're going to pretend that's not happening for the sake of our sanity. So today is yet another gonna have to be kind of short day. I am probably going to switch over to doing these on Fridays as a result because this has been like a month, 2 months now where I basically am stretched pretty badly for time to do these. Oh, actually, yeah. Well, yeah, I'll have to. But today, fortunately, we'll be able to get to book two or part two of The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, which is very reassuring. It is not far off. It's only a couple pages, and I should be able to do that in the time I have available, which is splendid. Um, this is actually pretty climactic. Like this is kind of big. What's coming up? Um, so that's good. We're actually getting some action in. What little action there is in this book, there really isn't very much. There's this coming bit. There's a bit a little while later when uh, Tara basically says enough is enough. We've had enough of your loony business. Um, but other than that, it's less slice of life and more revolutions are long periods of boredom punctuated by substantial violence and then boredom again. In this case, it's more about um, life on the moon meets the moon having a revolution against their Terran overlords. Um, so it's not exactly action packed. It's not like Starship Troopers, for instance. The Starship Troopers is also like half the length of this. Where we're up to right now in terms of pure reading material, page and word count is probably about where Starship Troopers would have ended, give or take. Uh, Starship Troopers is remarkably short. It is not a very long book. It is fairly exciting though. I'll probably read that one aloud at some point just because it's fun. Um, and then somehow tie it into Mecha Mondays and then probably show the entire 80s Starship Troopers anime OVA series. That'd be rad. Wouldn't that be a thought? Maybe we'll do that for Christmas. Um, he, he said very much jokingly. Where I kind of doubt I'm even going to be done with this book in time for Christmas. Besides, I want to read aloud Peter Watts's, I guess that's his most recent book, The Freeze Frame Revolution, because that book was a lot of fun. Short and sweet, very punchy, emphasis on punchy. Peter Watts is good like that. Okay, so without much further ado, the biggest thing that's happened recently is that um, Manny, our protagonist, Manny, the main character, has made contact with an individual who's from Earth. He's kind of a dilettante, um, uh, but he could possibly be won over to their cause. What's his name? Stuart Rene Lajoie. Probably I should be reading his voice in a French accent if we encounter him again, which we might. I don't remember now. I'll try and remember to do that. I probably won't. Um, Mostly because my French accent is atrocious and offensive to me especially. All right. Let's get this done. My head is stuffy. I've got whatever's going on. There's a lot of wood smoke and whatnot in the air, and it stuffs me up this time of year. Okay, so without substantial further ado, let me get some more fluid in me. And let's rock. Or moon rock. Uh. Okay. Chapter 12. April and May 76 were more hard work and increasing effort to stir up loonies against Warden and goad him into retaliation. Trouble with Mort the Wart was that he was not a bad egg, nothing to hate about him other than the fact he was symbol of authority. Was necessary to frighten him to get him to do anything. And average loony was just as bad. He despised Warden as matter of ritual, but was not stuff that makes revolutionists. He couldn't be bothered. Beer, betting, women, and work. Only thing that kept revolution from dying of anemia was that peace dragoons had real talent for antagonizing. But even then, even them we had to keep stirred up. Prof kept saying we needed a Boston Tea Party, referring to mythical incident in an earlier revolution, by which he meant a public ruckus to grab attention. We kept trying. Mike rewrote lyrics of old revolutionary songs. Marseillaise, Internationale, Yankee Doodle, We Shall Overcome, Pie in the Sky, etc., giving them words to fit Luna. Stuff like, Sons of rock and boredom, will you let the warden take from you your liberty? Simon Jester spread them around, and when one took hold, we pushed it, music only, by radio and video. This put Warden in silly position of forbidding playing of certain tunes, which suited us. People could whistle. Mike studied voice and word choice patterns of deputy administrator, chief engineer, other department heads. Warden started getting frantic calls at night from his staff, which they denied making. So Alvarez put lock and trace on next one. And sure enough, with Mike's help, Alvarez traced it to Supply Chief's phone, and was sure it was Boss Bellyrobber's voice. But next poison call to Mort seemed to come from Alvarez, and what Mort had to say next day to Alvarez, and what Alvarez said in own defense, can only be described as chaotic crossed with psychotic. Prof had Mike stop, was afraid Alvarez might lose job, which we did not want. He was doing too well for us. But by then peace dragoons had been dragged out twice in night on what seemed to be Warden's orders, further disrupting morale, and Warden became convinced he was surrounded by traitors in official family, while they were sure he had blown every circuit. An ad appeared in Lunaya Pravda, announcing lecture by Dr. Adam Saleen on Poetry and Arts in Luna, a New Renaissance. No comrade attended. Word went down cells to stay away. Nor did anybody hang around when 3 squads of peace dragoons showed up. This involves Heisenberg principle as applied to Scarlet Pimpernels. Editor of Pravda spent bad hour explaining that he did not accept ads in person, and this one was ordered over counter and paid for in cash. He was told not to take ads from Adam Saleen. This was countermanded, and he was told to take anything from Adam Saleen, but notify Alvarez at once. New catapult was tested with a load dropped into South Indian Ocean at 35 degrees east, 60 degrees south, a spot used only by fish. Mike was joyed over his marksmanship since he had been able to sneak only 2 looks when guidance and tracking radars were not in use, and had relied on just one nudge to bring it to bullseye. Earthside News reported giant meteor in sub-Antarctic picked up by Cape Town space track with projected impact that matched Mike's attempt perfectly. Mike called me to boast while taking down evening's Reuters transmission. "I told you it was dead on," he gloated. "I watched it. Oh, what a lovely splash." Later reports on shockwave from seismic labs and on tsunamis from oceanographic stations were consistent. Was only canister we had ready. Trouble buying steel. Or Mike might have demanded to try his new toy again. Liberty caps started appearing on Stilyagi and their girls. Simon Jester began wearing one between his horns. Bon Marché gave them away as premiums. Alvarez had painful talk with Warden in which Mort demanded to know if his Fink boss felt that something should be done every time kids took up fad. Had Alvarez gone out of his mind? I ran across Slim Lemke on Carver Causeway early May. He was wearing a Liberty cap. He seemed pleased to see me, and I thanked him for prompt payment. He had come in 3 days after Stu's trial and paid Sidrus 30 Hong Kong for gang, and bought him a cooler. While we were seated, I asked why young people were wearing red hats. Why a hat? Hats were an earthworm custom, yet. He hesitated, then said it was sort of a lodge, like Elks. I changed subject. Learned that his full name was Moses Lemke Stone, member of Stone Gang. This pleased me. We were relatives. But surprised me. However, even best families, such as Stone's, sometimes can't find marriages for all sons. I had been lucky, or might have been roving corridors at his age, too. There we go. Told him about our connection on my mother's side. He warmed up and shortly said, "Cousin Manuel, ever think about how we ought to elect our own warden?" I said no, I hadn't. Authority appointed him, and I supposed they always would. He asked why we had to have an authority. I asked who had been putting ideas in head. He insisted nobody had. Just thinking was all. Didn't he have a right to think? When I got home, was tempted to check with Mike, find out lad's party name, if any. But wouldn't have been proper security, nor fair to Slim. On 3 May 76, 71 males named Simon were rounded up and questioned, then released. No newspaper carried story, but everybody heard it. We were clear down in J's, and 12,000 people can spread a story faster than I would have guessed. We emphasized that one of these dangerous males was only 4 years old, which was not true, but very effective. Stu LaJoy stayed with us during February and March and did not return to Terra until early April. He changed his ticket to next ship and then to next. When I pointed out that he was riding close to invisible line where irreversible physiological changes could set in, he grinned and told me not to worry. He made arrangements to use centrifuge. Stu did not want to leave even by April. We kissed goodbye with tears by all my wives and Wyo, and he assured each one he was coming back. But he left, as he had work to do. Whoa, that's odd. Looks like extra punctuation there. But left, as he had work to do. By then, he was a party member. I did not take part in decision to recruit Stu. I felt prejudiced. Wyo and Prof and Mike were unanimous in risking it. I happily accepted their judgment. We all helped to sell Stu LaJoy. Self, Prof, Mike, Wyo, Mum, even Sidrus and Lenore and Ludmilla, and our kids and Hans and Ali and Frank, as Davis' home life was what grabbed him first. It did not hurt that Lenore was prettiest girl in L City, which is no disparagement of Milla, Wyo, Anna, and Sidrus. Nor did it hurt that Stu could charm a baby away from a breast. Mom fussed over him, Hans showed him hydroponic farming, and Stu got dirty and sweaty and sloshed around in tunnels with our boys, helped harvest our Chinese fish ponds, got stung by our bees, learned to handle a pea suit, and went up with me to make adjustments on solar battery, helped Anna butcher a hog and learned about tanning leather, sat with Grandpa and was respectful to his naive notions about Terra, washed dishes with Milla, something no male in our family ever did, rolled on floor with babies and puppies, learned to grind flour, and swapped recipes with Mum. I introduced him to Prof, and that started political side of feeling him out. Nothing had been admitted. We could back away. When Prof introduced him to Adam Celine, who could visit only by phone as he was, quote, in Hong Kong at present, unquote. By time Stu was committed to cause, We dropped pretense and let him know that Adam was chairman whom he would not meet in person for security reasons. But Wyo did most, and was on her judgment that Prof turned cards up and let Stu know that we were building a revolution. Was no surprise. Stu had made up mind and was waiting for us to trust him. They say a face once launched 1,000 ships. I do not know that Wyo used anything but argument on Stu. I never tried to find out. But Wyo had more to do with committing me than all Prof's theory or Mike's figures. If Wyo used even stronger methods on Stu, she was not first heroine in history to do so for her country. Stu went Earthside with a special code book. I'm no code and cipher expert, except that a computer man learns principles during study of information theory. A cipher is a mathematical pattern under which one letter substitutes for another, simplest being one in which alphabet is merely scrambled. A cipher can be incredibly subtle, especially with help of a computer. But ciphers all have weaknesses, that they are patterns. If one computer can think them up, another computer can break them. Codes do not have same weakness. Let's say that codebook has letter group GLOPS, G-L-O-P-S. Does this mean Aunt Minnie will be home Thursday, or does it mean 3.14157? Or pi? Meaning is whatever you assign, and no computer can analyze it simply from letter group. Give a computer enough groups and a rational theory involving meanings or subjects for meanings, and it will eventually worry it out, because meanings themselves will show patterns. But is a problem of different kind on more difficult level. Code we selected was Commonest Commercial Codebook, used both on Terra and in Luna for commercial dispatches. But we worked it over. Prof and Mike spent hours discussing what information party might wish to send to its agent on Terra, or receive from agent. Then Mike put his vast information to work and came up with a new set of meanings for codebook, ones that could say, buy Thai rice futures as easily as run for life, they've caught us. Or anything, as cipher signals were buried in it to permit anything to be said that had not been anticipated. Late one night, Mike made printout of new code via Lunaya Pravda's facilities, and Night Editor turned roll over to another comrade who converted it into a very small roll of film and passed it along in turn, and none ever knew what they handled or why. Wound up in Stu's pouch. Search of off-planet luggage was tight by then and conducted by bad-tempered dragoons. But Stu was certain he would have no trouble. Perhaps he swallowed it. Thereafter, some of Luno Hoko's dispatches. Let's try that again. Thereafter, some of Luno Hoko's dispatches to Terra reached Stu via his London broker. Part of purpose was financial. Party needed to spend money Earthside. Luno Hoko transferred money there. Not all stolen, some ventures turned out well. Party needed still more money Earthside. Stu was to speculate, acting on secret knowledge of plan of revolution. He, Prof, and Mike had spent hours discussing what stocks would go up, what would go down, etc., after Der Tag, meaning the day in German. This was Prof's pigeon. I am not that sort of gambler. But money was needed before Der Tag to build climate of opinion. We needed publicity, needed delegates and senators in federated nations, needed some nation to recognize us quickly once the day came. We needed laymen telling other laymen over a beer, what is there on that pile of rock worth one soldier's life? Let 'em go to hell in their own way, I say. Money for publicity, money for bribes, money for dummy organizations and to infiltrate established organizations, money to get true nature of Luna's economy. Stu had gone loaded with figures, brought out as scientific research, then in popular form. Money to convince Foreign Office of at least one major nation that there was advantage in a free Luna. Money to sell idea of lunar tourism to a major cartel. Too much money. Stu offered own future. Stu offered own fortune, and Prof did not discourage it. Where treasure is, heart will be. But still too much money, and far too much to do. I did not know if Stu could swing a tenth of it. Simply kept fingers crossed. At least it gave us a channel to Terra. Prof claimed that communications to enemy were essential to any war, if was to be fought and settled sensibly. Prof was a pacifist. Like his vegetarianism, he did not let it keep him from being rational. Would have made terrible theologian. As soon as Stu went Earthside, Mike set odds at 1 in 13. I asked him, what in hell? But man, he explained patiently, it increases risk. That it is necessary risk does not change the fact that risk is increased. I shut up. About that time, early May, a new factor reduced some risks while revealing others. One part of Mike handled Terra Luna microwave traffic, commercial messages, scientific data, news channels, video, voice telephony, telephony. Oh, God. Say that 12 times fast, I dare you. Voice radio telephony, routine authority traffic, and Warden's top secret. Aside from last, Mike could read any of this, including commercial codes and ciphers. Breaking ciphers was a crossword puzzle to him, and nobody mistrusted this machine. Except Warden, and I suspect that his was distrust of all machinery. Was sort of person who finds anything more involved than a pair of scissors complex, mysterious, and suspect. Stone Age mind. Warden used a code that Mike never saw. Also used ciphers and did not work them through Mike. Instead, he had a moronic little machine in residence office. On top of this, he had arrangement with Authority Earthside to switch everything around at preset times. No doubt he felt safe. Mike broke his cipher patterns and deduced time change program just to try legs. He did not tackle code until Prof suggested it. It held no interest for him. But once Prof asked, Mike tackled Warden's top secret messages. He had to start from scratch. In past, Mike had erased Warden's messages once transmission was reported. So slowly, he accumulated data for analysis. Painfully slow, for Warden used this method only when he had to. Sometimes a week would pass between such messages. But gradually, Mike began to gather meanings for letter groups, each assigned a probability. A code does not crack all at once. Possible to know meanings of 99 groups in a message and miss essence because one group is merely glops to you. However, user has a problem too. If glops comes through as glopped, he's in trouble. Any method of communication needs redundancy, or information can be lost. Was at redundancy that Mike nibbled, with perfect patience of machine. Mike solved most of Warden's code sooner than he had projected. Warden was sending more traffic than in past, and most of it one subject, which helped, subject being security and subversion. We had Mort in a twitter. He was yelling for help. He reported subversive activities still going on despite two phalanges of peace dragoons and demanded enough troops to station guards in all key spots inside all warrens. Authority told him this was preposterous. No more of FN's crack troops could be spared, to be permanently ruined for Earthside duties, and such requests should not be made. If he wanted more guards, he must recruit them from transportees. But such increase in administrative costs must be absorbed in Luna. He would not be allowed more overhead. He was directed to report what steps he had taken to meet new grain quotas set in our such and such. Warden replied that unless extremely moderate requests for trained security personnel, not, repeat, not untrained, unreliable, and unfit convicts were met, he could no longer assure civil order, much less increased quotas. Reply asked sneeringly what difference it made if ex-consignees, because it's split in half and goes over to the next page. Oh, God. Reply asked sneeringly what difference it made if ex-consignees chose to riot among themselves in their holes. If it worried him, had he thought of shutting off lights as was used so successfully in 1996 and 2021? That's right, folks, you heard it here. The second lunar revolution happens in 2021. Be ready. Where was I? Sugar. These exchanges caused us to revise our calendar, to speed some phases, slow others. Like a perfect dinner, a revolution has to be cooked, so that everything comes out even. Stew needed time earthside. We needed canisters and small steering rockets and associated circuitry for rock throwing. And steel was a problem. Buying it, fabricating it, and above all moving it through meander of tunnels to new catapult site. We needed to increase party at least into the Ks, say 40,000, with the lowest echelons picked for fighting spirit rather than talents we had sought earlier. We needed weapons against landings. We needed to move Mike's radars, without which he was blind. Mike could not be moved. Bits of him spread all through Luna, but he had 1,000 meters of rock over that central part of him at Complex, was surrounded by steel, and this armor was cradled in springs. Authority had contemplated that someday somebody might lob H-weapons at their control center. All these needed to be done, and pot must not boil over too soon. So we cut down on things that worried Warden, and tried to speed up everything else. Simon Jester took a holiday. Word went out that Liberty Caps were not stylish, but save them. Warden got no more nervous-making phone calls. We quit inciting incidents with dragoons, which did not stop them, but in reduced number. Despite efforts to quiet Mort's worries, a symptom showed up which disquieted us instead. No message, at least we intercepted none, reached Warden agreeing to his demand for more troops. But he started moving people out of Complex. Civil servants who lived there started looking for holes to rent in L City. Authorities started test drills and resonance exploration in a cubic adjacent to L City which could be converted into a warren. Could mean that Authority proposed shipping up unusually large draft of prisoners. Could mean that space in Complex was needed for purpose other than quarters. But Mike told us, "Why kid yourselves? The Warden is going to get those troops. That space will be their barracks. Any other explanation I would have heard." Any other explanation I would have heard. I would have. Oh my God. Any other explanation I would have heard. Yes, repeating the same sentence 4 times really makes my day. I said, "But Mike, why didn't you hear if it's troops? You have that code of wardens fairly well whipped." "Not just fairly well. I've got it whipped. But the last 2 ships have carried Authority VIPs, and I don't know what they talk about away from phones." So we tried to plan to cover possibility of having to cope with 10 more phalanges, that being Mike's estimate of what cubic being cleared would hold. We could deal with that many, with Mike's help, but it would mean deaths, not bloodless coup d'etat that Prof had planned. And we increased efforts to speed up other factors, when suddenly we found ourselves committed. Chapter 13. Her name was Mary Lyons. She was 18 years old and born in Luna, mother having been exiled via Peace Corps in '56. No record of father. She seems to have been a harmless person. Worked as a stock control clerk in shipping department. Lived in complex. Maybe she hated authority and enjoyed teasing peace dragoons. Or perhaps it started as a commercial transaction as cold-blooded as any in a crib behind a slot machine lock. How can we know? 6 dragoons were in it. Not satisfied with raping her, if rape it was, they abused her other ways and killed her. But they did not dispose of body neatly. Another civil service femme found it before it was cold. She screamed. Was her last scream. We heard about it at once. Mike called us 3 while Alvarez and Peace Dragoon's CO were digging into the matter in Alvarez's office. Appears that Peace Goon boss had no trouble laying hands on guilty. He and Alvarez were questioning them one at a time and quarreling between grillings. Once we heard Alvarez say, I told you those goons of yours would have to have their own woman. I warned you. Stuff it, Dragoon officer answered. I've told you time and again they won't ship any. The question now is how we hush this up. Are you crazy? Warden already knows. It's still the question. Ah, shut up and send in the next one. Early in Filthy Story, Wyo joined me in workshop. Was pale under makeup, said nothing but wanted to sit close and clench my hand. At last was over, and Dragoon officer left Alvarez. We're still quarreling. Alvarez wanted those 6 executed at once, and fact made public. Sensible, but not nearly enough for his needs. CO was still talking about hushing it up. Prof said, Mike, keep an ear there and listen where else you can. Well, Mike? Wyo? Plans? I didn't have any. Wasn't a cold, shrewd revolutionist. Just wanted to get my heel into faces that marched those 6 votes. Wasn't a cold, shrewd revolutionist. Just wanted to get my heel into faces that matched those 6 voices. I don't know. What do we do, Prof? Do? We're on our tiger. We grab its ears. Mike, where's Finn Nielsen? Find him. Mike answered. He's calling now. He cut Finn in with us. I heard, At Tube South, both guards dead and about 6 of our people. Just people, I mean, not necessarily comrades. Some wild rumor about goons going crazy and raping and killing all women at Complex. Adam, I had better talk to Prof. I'm here, Finn, Prof answered in a strong, confident voice. Now we move. We've got to. Switch off and get those laser guns and men trained with them, and any you can round up. Da. Okay, Adam? Do as Prof says, then call back.
Hold it, Finn, I cut in. Manny here. I want one of those guns.
You haven't practiced, Manny.
If it's a laser, I can use it.
Manny, Prof said forcefully, shut up. You're wasting time. Let Finn go. Adam, message for Mike. Tell him plan alert 4. Prof's example damped my oscillating. Had forgotten that Finn was not supposed to know Mike was anybody but Adam Celine. Forgotten everything but raging anger. Mike said, Finn has switched off, Prof, and I put alert 4 on standby when this broke. No traffic now except routine stuff filed earlier. You don't want it interrupted, do you? No, just follow alert 4. No Earthside transmission either way that tips any news. If one comes in, hold it and consult. Alert 4 was emergency communication doctrine, intended to slap censorship on news to Terra without arousing suspicion. For this, Mike was ready to talk in many voices with excuses as to why a direct voice transmission would be delayed, and any taped transmission was no problem. Program running, agreed Mike. Good. Manny, calm down, son, and stick to your knitting. Let other people do the fighting. You're needed here. We're going to have to improvise. Why, cut out and get word to Comrade Cecilia to get all irregulars out of the corridors. Get those children home and keep them home. And have their mothers urging other mothers to do the same thing. We don't know where the fighting will spread. But we don't want children hurt if we can help it.
Right away, Prof.
Wait. As soon as you've told Sidris, get moving on your Stilyagi. I want a riot at the authorities' city office. Break in, wreck the place, and noise and shouting and destruction. No one hurt if it can be helped. Mike, alert 4M. Cut off the complex except for your own lines.
Prof, I demanded, what sense in starting riots here?
Manny, this is the day. Mike, has the rape and murder news reached other Warrens?
Not that I've heard. I'm listening here and there with random jumps. Tube stations are quiet except Luna City. Fighting has just started at Tube Station West. Want to hear it?
Not now. Manny, slide over there and watch it. But stay out of it and stick close to a phone. Mike, start trouble in all Warrens. Pass the news down the cells and use Finn's version, not the truth. The goons are raping and killing all the women in the complex. I'll give you details, or you can invent them. Uh, can you order the guards at tube stations in other Warrens back to their barracks? I want war riots, but there's no point in sending unarmed people against armed men if we can dodge it.
I'll try.
I hurried to Tube Station West, slowed as I neared it. Corridors were full of angry people. City roared in way I had never heard before, and, as I crossed the causeway, could hear shouts and crowd noise from direction of authorities' city office, although it seemed to me there had not been time for Wyo to reach her Stilyagi. Nor had there been. What Prof had tried to start was underway spontaneously. Station was mobbed, and I had to push through to see what I assumed to be certain, that passport guards were either dead or fled. Dead, it turned out, along with 3 loonies. One was a boy not more than 13. He had died with his hands on a dragoon's throat and his head still sporting a little red cap. I pushed way into a public phone and reported.
Go back, said Prof, and read the ID of one of those guards. I want name and rank. Have you seen Finn?
No.
He's headed there with 3 guns. Tell me where the booth you're in. Oh my God. Tell me where the booth you're in is. Get that name and come back to it.
One body was gone, dragged away. Bog knows what they wanted with it. Other had been badly battered, but I managed to crowd in and snatch dog chain from neck before it, too, was taken somewhere. I elbowed back to phone, found a woman at it. Lady, I said, I've got to use that phone. Emergency.
You're welcome to it. Pesky thing's out of order.
Worked for me. Mike had saved it. Gave Prof guard's name.
Good, he said. Have you seen Finn? He'll be looking for you at that booth.
Haven't seen... Ah, hold it. Just spotted him.
Okay, hang on to him. Mike, do you have a voice to fit that dragoon's name?
Sorry, Prof. No.
All right, just make it hoarse and frightened. Chances are the CO won't know it that well. Or would the trooper call Alvarez?
He would call his CO. Alvarez gives orders through him.
So, call the CO. Report the attack and call for help and die in the middle of it. Riot sounds behind you and maybe a shout of, "There's the dirty bastard now!" just before you die. Can you swing it?
Programmed. No hoo-hoo, Mike said cheerfully.
Run it. Manny, put Finn on.
Prof's plan was to sucker off-duty guards out of barracks and keep suckering them, with Finn's men posted to pick them off as they got out of capsules. And it worked, right up to point where Mort the Wart lost his nerve and kept remaining few to protect himself, while he sent frantic messages Earthside, none of which got through. I wiggled out of Prof's discipline and took a laser gun when second capsule of Peace Dragoons was due. I burned 2 goons, found Bloodlust gone, and let other snipers have the rest of the squad. Too easy. They would stick heads up out of hatch, and that would be that. Half of squad would not come out, until smoked out, and then died with the rest. By that time, I was back at my advance post at phone. Warden's decision to hole up caused trouble at Complex. Alvarez was killed, and so was Goon CO, and 2 of original Yellow Jackets. But a mixed lot of Dragoons and Yellows, 13, holed up with Mort, or perhaps were already with him. Mike's ability to follow events by listening was spotty. But once it seemed clear that all armed effectives were inside Warden's residence, Prof ordered Mike to start next phase. Mike turned out all lights in Complex, save those in Warden's residence, and reduced oxygen to gasping point. Not killing point, but low enough to ensure that anyone looking for trouble would not be in shape. But in residence, oxygen supply was cut to 0, leaving pure nitrogen, and left that way 10 minutes. At end of that time, Finn's men, waiting in pea suits at Warden's private tube station, broke latch on airlock and went in, shoulder to shoulder. Luna was ours.
All right. I am going to have to call it at that, though. Unfortunately, I would have liked to go on longer, but I do have to scoot. Um, that's also a very convenient stopping point since the next part is book 2. There's also a book 3, part 3. They're all in one book. It's just they're called book instead of part or act or whatever. And each one covers kind of a different segment of the revolution. The first book is the build up to the revolution. Second book is the revolution has succeeded and now they've got to deal with negotiating with Earth, or they need to deal with Earth's response, I should say. And then book 3 is them kind of negotiating with Earth and then just general aftermath of the revolution and whatnot. Which sounds like spoilers, but there's a lot that goes on in there. A lot of interesting nitty gritties. But it's very like I think it's a great book. I am unfortunately mangling it half the time because it's hard to read since it's done in sort of glorious Russian pidgin English and is not always easy to quite understand, comrades. It misses certain thes and that's, and it is really, really hard. I've actually inserted a number of these and that's while reading because my brain is getting in the way and making me do that. I say making. Have I ever mentioned that free will is probably an illusion? Um, but yeah, with that, I do have to scoot. Thanks for tuning in. I don't think anyone's tuning in live, but my data skimmers are often inaccurate on that point. Sometimes I've had several people tuned in, and it is claimed there are none, as well as claimed that there are like 3 people, and obviously nobody's there. But if you're watching this after the fact, hi. I'm Fragath. I do this every week at about noon Eastern Standard Time um, on Saturdays, and I'll probably stay on Storytime Saturdays until I'm done with this book, and then I'm gonna have to move to free Fridays and come up with a new moniker because my Saturdays have been just absolutely packed lately. Um, Not so much in the mornings, but like as soon as the afternoon hits. Um, I also do other streams throughout the week. I have a Mecha Monday stream where I do something giant robot related or mecha adjacent. Right now, we're doing a run through of a game on the PSP called Macross Ultimate Frontier. Hooray! If you like seeing planes that turn into humanoid bipedal robots and shoot things with about a zillion missiles and bullets and go pew pew pew, that is for you. If you don't, well, okay, that's fine. And then on Wednesdays, I have Warframe Wednesdays. I wasn't able to do one this past week. Things came up. All right. Thanks again. Have a good one. Stay classy and get out and vote. I don't care who you vote for. Get out and vote. It's important. It's important. In fact, it should be made a legal requirement. You should get fined if you don't. I think Australia has the right idea. And I think Brazil, I want to say. I want to say Brazil, you're legally required to vote. I might be misremembering that. I know Australia does. You get fined if you don't. It's not a namby-pamby fine either. It's pretty meaty. All right, let's get out and vote. Enjoy life though. Stay alive. And stay safe. All right, folks. I gotta scoot. Been a pleasure.